That's weird. Joe Biden's not listening. Maybe if I vote for him again. Yeah.
I'm so glad we're getting together to talk about gender equality in the workplace. Yes, it is so important that we empower our female colleagues. But before we kick off, I would like to hear my own voice in this conversation. I agree. I also have a lot of thoughts and love the sound of my own voice. We should also hear from our 13 other male leaders as well. Of course, I really want their perspective on the female experience. My favorite part of these conversations is getting all of these different perspectives. Yes, John, Michael, James, John S., Robert, John R., Jack, Matthew, and John T. all have invaluable insights. We are all so amazing for having these conversations. We deserve a lot of praise. We truly are heroes for having these conversations, and everyone on LinkedIn should know about this. We are now out of time and have to stop talking about gender equality in the workplace. That was a valuable 15 minutes, and I cannot wait until the next conversation about gender equality.
There's this social phenomenon that I really love with neurodivergent people. It's called the diagnostic domino effect, or at least that's what I call it. It's where you realize that you have a certain thing and you start talking about it more often, and so people around you start to reflect and think, oh, fuck, I do that. Maybe I also have that thing. And then they start talking about it more often, and then the people around them start to realize, oh, wait, I think I might also have that thing. And because undiagnosed neurodivergents tend to subconsciously flock together, when just one of us becomes self-aware, it causes a domino effect where everyone in the group starts to become self-aware as well. It's really more of a cascade effect if we think about it. So like I figured out that I have ADHD from watching Connor DeWolf on TikTok, and then I started talking about it more often, which led my best friend to realize that she also has ADHD. So she started talking about it more often and realized that her brother also has ADHD, and possibly both of her parents. Meanwhile, I'm working on a couple of my cousins. You tip over one domino and they all start to fall.
Recently, I visited the University of Oregon, and I got to go to their Black Cultural Center and present for Black History Month, and while I was there, I noticed that there's not a lot of Black folks in Oregon, and I wanted to know why. The history is racist as hell. Back in 1844, when chattel slavery was still legal in the United States, new states started to figure out, hey, we're a new state, we have all this stolen land, how should we deal with the issue of slavery? And then there started to be free states, states that didn't have enslavement, and states that were slave states, or states that had slavery. But what Oregon decided to do when it became a territory and then a state was to ban Black people entirely. And the way this has been taught has been so racist and inaccurate. Basically, it's been made to seem like the white people who were in Oregon who were founding the state were so benevolent that instead of having families be torn apart over the issue of enslavement and the moral quandary that it is, we should just ban Black people for their own good. Which, has many layers of wrong. And the interesting thing is that they didn't completely ban Black people. They had a 3-year limit where Black people could live in the state. And then after those 3 years, they had something called lash laws, which legally mandated that Black people be beaten over a period of 6 months repeatedly until they left the state. And even those incredibly racist and violent laws were framed as being benevolent because at least the people weren't getting lynched. And researching or learning about something like that is a type of thing that makes you just take aback and rewrite your entire keynote speech, which is what I did. So I completely threw out my other speech on Black history and decided to make one very specific to the state of Oregon, the racist history behind the lash laws and these different restrictions going back to 1844, the displacement of Native Americans, white privilege, and so many other conversations. I think it went pretty well, but it also made me think about the fact that it all started with me just thinking, there's not a lot of Black people that I'm seeing in Oregon. Why is that? And so now I know and you know, and that's fantastic, but it also made me think about the fact that we should be looking into more things that we just take for granted. No, your neighborhood isn't mostly white just because that's how it ended up. It's usually because of racism and segregation. So I hope it encourages you to look a little deeper into your history and know it's not still Black History Month, but that's something that should be celebrated and acknowledged year-round.
A widow unexpectedly received $1 billion and now she's paying med students tuitions forever. Watch this video and I'll be right back.
Happy to share with you that starting in August this year, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine will be tuition free.
So cool. The 93-year-old widow of a Wall Street financier has donated $1 billion to a Bronx medical school, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, with instructions that the gift be used to cover tuitions for all students going forward. The donor, Ruth Gottesman, I hope I'm saying that right, is a former professor at Einstein, where she studied learning disabilities, developed a screening test, and ran literacy programs. It is one of the largest charitable donations to an educational institution in the United States, and most likely the largest to a medical school. The fortune came from her late husband, David Gottesman, known as Sandy, who was a protege of Warren Buffett. The donation is notable not only for its staggering size, but also because it's going to a medical institution in the Bronx, the city's poorest borough. The Bronx has a high rate of premature deaths and ranks as the unhealthiest county in New York. Over the past generations, a number of billionaires have given hundreds of millions of dollars to better-known medical schools and hospitals in Manhattan, the city's wealthiest borough. So she said her husband died in 2022 and left her, unknown to her, this money, and the instructions were simple: do whatever you think is right with it, she recalled. She was reluctant to attach her name to the donation. She basically said nobody needs to know. But one of her friends, Dr. Ozar, insisted that others might find her life inspiring. Here's somebody who is totally dedicated to the welfare of others and wants no accolades and no recognition. Now that is some really cool shit. Like I say on my page all the time, there's a little bit over 2,600 billionaires and millionaires on the planet. They hoard $13 trillion worth of wealth. Imagine if that wealth was distributed back to the people instead of being hoarded in bank accounts and investment portfolios. Imagine how they would change the world. Ruth is an inspiration. Imagine all the new doctors that'll be able to go to school and come out debt-free and help people. Pretty cool shit.
I've been studying the waist-hip ratio of this small tribe in Africa, and I take pictures of them, I measure them, and I see how attractive they are to men. And I take pictures of them, naked, of course, and then I just show the naked pictures, I never ask them, to my class. And that's what I study. I've spent my whole life on this. I've invested a lot of money. I've gotten a lot of money to do this research, and I've learned so much. There's no actual tangible value. There's no tangible value for why I'm doing this research, but then I'm able to learn if men are more attracted to skinny waists. And then I publish about it in an article that no one can read, except for me.
A ton of people in my life have said that they love to understand and accept my autism, but then refuse to believe me when I tell them that my words don't hold any subtext. This has happened more times than I care to count, and this is the most direct form of ableism that I face as a low support needs autistic person. And I realize a ton of other autistics definitely have it worse than this, and it's not the worst thing to complain about, but god damn does it get under my skin. Because no matter how hard I tried to convince the other person that my words held no subtext of any kind, they refuse to believe me every single time. This has happened more times than I care to admit or talk about on here. And it is so deflating because people hear autism and they think of physical accommodations, which they are more than often not happy to abide by and offer, which is great. But they don't think about the emotional accommodations that they need to take on for the autistic person. And that is one that comes up time and time again, and it is so infuriating. And I understand where they're coming from because in the allistic world, the conversations are ruled and riddled with subtext. They are governed by them. But when you're in a conversation with an autistic person, there is no subtext in their words more often than not, I would say, at least for me. And just trying to get the other person's brain to understand that I say what I mean without any ulterior motive is a Sisyphean task at best and impossible at worst. Oh, it's so frustrating. Oh, I just want,
Going to say something controversial, and your cognitive dissonance will deactivate your critical thinking the moment that you feel triggered. I'm not trying to offend you, but if you find yourself upset, self-reflect. I'm going to talk about 3 things that seem like they have no correlation to one another. I'm going to talk about Aaron Bushnell self-immolating outside of the Israeli embassy in DC. I'm going to talk about taking shrooms and smoking weed. I'm going to talk about social media, television, movies, and the news cycle. And I'm going to show you how all of these connect together. When we take shrooms, you experience an emotional peak. You go from here to here to here to here. When you smoke weed, depending on the strain, either you experience a burst in creativity, you experience some sort of euphoric sedation, or you experience a heightened sense of paranoia and anxiety. When you watch TikTok first thing in the morning, you might watch a video of a baby laughing. The next thing is a white cop playing basketball with black kids in the middle of the street. The next video is a white cop holding a black man at gunpoint for a simple traffic stop. The next video after that is TikTok shop trying to sell you a spin brush. The next video after that is a girlfriend being cheated on for the 400th time by her boyfriend and everybody in the comment section dragging her. You're going to see content that takes you here, 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 here. When you watch the news, what do? They give you heavy content, light content, heavy content, light content, because if they only give you one or the other, you won't watch it. You will not engage. And then you have television and movies. The very first time graphic content hit the screens, it caused a fucking uproar to the point where they created a rating system. Rated G, rated PG-13, rated R, TVMA, TV-14. It got to the point where they had to put viewers' discretion advised, not suitable for viewers under the age of, because they knew it would have effects on the psyche. But the problem is that I think we watch people die so often on screen for entertainment's sake that we have become desensitized. And I know we use this word often, but I don't think we're very honest about what that means, to the point where when we watch real people die on camera, it doesn't have the effects on us that it's supposed to. I watched the Aaron Bushnell video 4 times before I shed a tear, and I talked to my therapist about it, and she said you can't force emotions. You might feel numb up front, like you're supposed to feel more, but you can't, simply because of how much you've been watching over the last few months. And all I can think about is the simple fact that if we hadn't been so desensitized, if our empathy hadn't been so sedated, if this was a different time and it was not normal to watch death for the sake of enjoyment, then most of us would either be rioting in the streets and making January 6th look like a cakewalk, or we would be crying, shitting, screaming, and throwing up in the fetal position because we wouldn't be able to handle this. And the simple fact that we just scroll and go on about our lives, this is not normal. And people keep saying, why haven't we revolted? Why haven't we started a revolution? We rioted dawn. How are we supposed to revolt if you're only outraged in 30-second intervals? The simple fact that you can watch something funny after watching something distressing, it may not dissipate the outrage that you feel, but it might take it down from being outraged to upset. And now upset doesn't really feel like doing anything. Upset just feels upset. And that's scary work.
Okay, 10 books to make you that crazy plant person. You know that person, the one who's walking through the woods who can like name all the trees and plants. We're gonna get you there, boo-boo. Here's how you stunt on people using the Latin names of all of those plants. This book is called Botany in a Day. I obviously have used it a lot. Botany in a Day. Teaching you all the different plant families and their similarities. So even when you don't know the exact plant, you can still be like, hey, I know your cousin. Trying to arrest me for giving you the knowledge. This book has changed lives. I am one of those lives. This is Robin Wall Kimmerer's amazing work braiding sweetgrass. You will recognize so many of the plants. Bonus points if you can get the audiobook version. It's like having your sweetest auntie telling you secrets about the universe. I open mouth sobbed when I met her last year, and I would not exchange the experience for the world. Next, you knew this was coming, Sam Thayer's brand new chunky field guide. It is the field guide to edible wild plants. It's amazing. I wish I had had this book when I was growing up. The photos, the writing, it's excellent. Sam is also just a phenomenal human being. We're doing a comedy show together soon. I know we said we were doing plants, but one for the fungi girlies, Michael Kuo's 100 edible mushrooms. Fantastic. I came to mushrooms later in life, and Michael Kuo has me feeling much more confident out there than I used to. Next, we have 2 cookbooks. So once you identify the plants, once you bring the plants home, then you're like, Alexis, what am I gonna cook with these? I have Flora by the forager chef Alan Berga. I have The Forager's Pantry by Ellen Zacco. Both stellar human beings, both excellent in the kitchen. The people who I would want preparing my last meal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, another great cookbook. New wild crafted cuisine. This is more for my West Coast girlies. Y'all are like, Alexis, give me those desert plants. Give me those West Coast plants. Pascal has got you. Oh, my necklace is running away. Goodbye. Such inventive uses for all of these flavors. Y'all hear me talking about eating acorns all the time? This book is called Eating Acorns. It's kind of hard to find. It goes through how to harvest the acorn, different types of oaks all around the world, and then all of these phenomenal recipes. Look at those acorn waffles. They look like little hearts. I want them in my face. These last two books are hard to find. That's why I saved them for last. These are the kind of books that you put a watch out for them on eBay and you wait. It took me years to get these two books for under like $200. Actually, pretty sure I got them both for under $100, but it's hard. This is Cornucopia. It is a list of all of the edible plants in the world and all of the cultures that eat them. If you're online looking at things like Plants for a Future, you see a book getting referenced in every single article, it's this. She's big, but she's full of knowledge. LOL, same. I love her. I take this book off my shelf multiple times a week. Make good financial decisions. Do not pay the first price that you see. The same goes for this one. I see this one getting referenced all the time. This is Native American Ethnobotany by Daniel E. Mowerman. I love that it gives you specific tribes and how they specifically use the plants. I think too many times we paint this wide paintbrush over indigenous cultures as if they aren't just as diverse as the rest of us. I love seeing the different ways that different groups across the country use plants and giving credit where credit is due. If you don't want to have this chonker of a book on your shelf, there is also an edition of this that's just food plants. It is way harder to find that one. And also, I like seeing some of the medicinal uses of food plants too. Those are my 10 books on how you become a crazy plant person like me. Hope you enjoy it. Happy snacking, don't die. Wow.
Honest question, genuine question. Why don't leftists care about masking? Why aren't supposed radical, socially conscious people, why aren't they masking? Like, we're in a full-on pandemic raging, disabling hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions. We care about liberation, but not for the disabled. I genuinely do not understand the dissonance. We claim to care about communal safety, but like not about community when it comes to a virus that's spreading and acts like HIV in a lot of ways. COVID, it's a damaging virus. It's truly a damaging virus. And the denial and the passivity of leftist people in masking, I can't grasp it, man. Our government has lied to us about everything, but they haven't withheld things about COVID. Like COVID's the thing that we can trust them on. I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss. I just don't get it.